What is up, guys? Nelson Rodriguez Jr., Montana Method Podcast, your host, coming back to you on another Friday, on a beautiful Friday afternoon in Miami. A little late today. We had a little traffic incident with our engineer, but we're here. We're making it happen. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. And this week I have a very special guest, my friend Logic. He was gracious enough to have me on his podcast a few weeks back. We had a great time, talked about some really interesting stuff. Actually ended up talking about stuff I've never really talked about before on air. So I decided to do him the same courtesy he did me, have him on the show. We're going to have a good time. So stick around, stay tuned. Elijah, kick it.
I've been out here hustling all my life. Every day we get into it. Really out here in these streets. That's day and night. Like there's nothing to it. When I was going through it, dog, I never got your call. I never asked for nothing, no. But now I want it all. Promise I'ma do it. Came from rags to riches. Rags to riches. Came from rags to riches. Rags to riches. Came from rags.
Logic, welcome to the show, bro.
Thank you for having me, man.
Definitely.
Thank you. I love your setup over here. It's nice.
Nice aesthetic. I try to make it real Miami. You know?
Yeah, man. It got that culture to it, man. Perfect AC in this hot weather, too. You know what I mean? So
nice.
I'm happy I brought my jacket.
Nice and cool for all my guests. Make sure they're comfortable. You know what I mean? So.
Oh, yeah.
So Logic, first question. One thing's for sure, two things for certain. How'd you come up with the name for your podcast?
Believe it or not, when it came up to the name, originally it was going to be called Logic and Friends. And then one thing for sure, two things for certain, since I'm always speaking truth. And Young Jeezy is one of my favorite artists. You know, he has that Thug 101 album, and I pulled it from that.
Okay. That's cool. One thing's for sure, two things for certain. I like it. At first, I was like, "Why is it called 1424 Podcast on Instagram?" But obviously,
it's like a number acronym, but with numbers. It's weird.
I got you. All right. So, when was it that you originally started the show? How'd you come up with the idea? Tell me a little bit about that.
So the show, we've been basically doing it professionally for about coming on 2 years, 3 years total. Pretty much how it's always been, I naturally have people gravitate to me, and we always get into these crazy discussions, especially in the barbershop.
Right.
You know, shout out to Boa Studios. That's where I basically shoot at. Pretty much it came to a point, it was like, okay, you definitely have a talent. Why not basically see what's good with it? And I ran with it with some promotions and motivation behind it, because it's like I always try to seek out the truth. But the truth is one's experience. It's not what I say. It's not what you say. It's what we're living, you know, and we all have 100%. Different lives. So when it comes to the podcast, it's really more of, we already know what's going on in the mainstream. But what about for us guys, the ones who are actually getting it out the mud? And that's what I try to focus on.
That makes sense. And I like it. You keep it, and you talk about interesting things, like the videos that you put up and the things we discussed. It's not stuff you see on every podcast, you know?
No, it's not. That's one thing I'm really proud of, because when you talk about like what people follow, you know, whether it's celebrities or what's like really mainstream media, I try to steer away from that. Yeah. Because that's not our lives. You get what I'm 100%. Saying? So the last episode that I had with you was with the teacher that was terminated. Fun story is he's actually going after the school district because there's other teachers.
Good for him.
In the same situations, but they got to keep their jobs. Right. And now, is it racial? Is it, there's so many combinations, but this is the stuff that we deal with because we have nephews. Some of us have kids, and this is real news to us. You know, I don't know about you, but I'm not too concerned of what's going on with like the Kardashians or Kanye. Right. I'm not in their tax bracket. I'm here trying to get a crib and, find a decent mortgage type.
Right.
But yeah.
No, I'm very, when it comes to cultural issues, I like to discuss those things, and I think it's important for people like us who have the smaller podcast to kind of talk about that stuff, because it really does affect us more.
Agreed.
Than, the Kardashians or Kanye West. A lot of those people live in a bubble, and they don't really experience the reality of the world. A great example, he's actually one of my favorite actors, arguably my favorite actor. Well, Al Pacino's my favorite actor, but the stuff that Robert De Niro was up to and the stuff he was yelling in the media and all that. You're entitled to your opinion. Listen, hey, this is America, so I'm not one of these idiots who's like, oh, ban him. No, don't ban him. Don't cancel him, because he has the right to say what he wants to say.
Right.
That's what America is, especially if I disagree with you.
Yeah,
right?
Educate me.
Right.
You know, like educate me on how.
Or at least give me a different perspective from what I see. Right.
Agreed.
However, you can clearly see based on what he's saying, and God bless Robert De Niro because I love his movies. And I'm a huge, I mean, everybody knows I'm a mobster fanatic. I love Goodfellas. I love Casino. I love Irishman. I love everything.
Great movie, by the way.
Fantastic.
Irishman.
Fantastic
great
movie. And it just goes to show you how disconnected from the world these elites are. You know
Very
what I mean?
much so.
You have no clue what's going on to the average person.
Well, not only that, and again, I say this with no disrespect towards him. Just because I don't agree with you doesn't mean that you're my enemy.
Correct.
However, one thing for sure, two things for certain, is there is a major disconnect. We're not in the same tax bracket.
Yeah.
You're not in the same mindset. You're comfortable. Okay. So in my opinion, I can't say this as a fact. This is just my opinion. Your life doesn't relate to mine. You know, and because it doesn't relate to mine, you very well have every right to speak your mind,
Right.
but don't speak
On my behalf.
On my behalf,
Exactly.
when you don't even know what's going on.
When you have no clue.
That's the
Yes.
disrespect I don't like. Personally.
Yeah, like you feel like you have the authority to speak on everybody's behalf, and in reality, most people have no clue what your life is like, and you're the minority. So in order for you to kind of be like, oh, all of you should do this, no, we shouldn't.
No. Because to me, it's like not only with him, but with other entertainers, you know, granted, yes, we all started somewhere, and yeah, but that was then, this is now. And with that being said, is where things were before, that's the problem we're having now. If you think about where we are in this economy, where we are in this country,
100%.
is this is not the 1970s. You know, cost of living's up. People are tired. I said it before on my show. This is what I call the preparation of the fall of Rome.
Right.
Because let's be honest, we see how we've been lied to. And most of us are in a position where we're helping taking care of our parents when it's supposed to be the other way around.
150%.
You know, and not that us, you know, individuals, you know, it doesn't bother us, but it does leave a concern that you, Robert De Niro, Mr. Robert De Niro, you are in a different tax bracket where you're not thinking about your mortgage. You're not thinking about, oh, well, do I have to basically put in gas or do I eat today? These are things that you couldn't comprehend or
100%.
possibly think about. So how can you speak on my behalf as if you care? Because if you cared, you'd be more involved.
Correct.
You only care because it affects you,
Exactly.
not because the people.
And more than anything, I think it's just an emotional thing. You just have this personal distaste or disdain for Trump, which, listen, you don't have to like the guy, but that's your opinion. You know what I mean? And I hate what I think, and especially men, right? When men make logical decisions based on emotion, it makes us look so weak.
Emotions get you killed in life, man.
They do 100%. They're very deceiving. Emotions have no tie to like reality. Most of the time, our emotions and the way we feel and the way we interpret things have nothing to do with the reality of situation that's going on. A lot of emotions and triggers and things that men feel and people feel in general has to do with our own insecurities and our own bullshit that we were dealing with in our brains.
Your emotions don't make life valid for
At
what
all.
you want.
At all.
Emotions are basically a stir of one's experience that one tries to project on another
100%.
in order to get their way. Unfortunately, that's the best way I could break it down.
But you're right.
When you talk about Trump, I'm not a fan of Trump, but I basically call a spade a spade. You know, with that being said, just because I don't like something about somebody doesn't mean I automatically shut them out.
Correct.
I think we have learned that all from experiences in life as we grew into adulthood. You know, again, I don't like Biden either, you know,
Yeah.
and I think it's a very delicate situation for so many people to speak on, not only because job-wise or affiliation or even friends, you know. I know in the beginning a lot of people were, oh, well, if you like this person, you're racist.
Right.
And it's like, okay, that's like saying one black person steals, that makes us all criminals.
Right.
One dirty
exactly.
cop makes all police officers bad.
Right.
Exactly. So it's the content of one's character. And we're in a state of crisis because now there's a microscope on our government. And the truth of the matter is we can't turn a blind eye to it. And I think that's why things is so amped up, because it's like, how long has this been going on?
Correct.
Since when
Correct.
indoor trading, under the table, lobbying, like this is stuff that I never thought a day in my life. I don't know about you. When I was in high school, I wasn't thinking about shit like that. But as I, got into adulthood, it's like, hell yeah, it matters, bro. Like, because I'm trying to acquire more, and there's a
100%.
wedge between that. And I think people right now need to get out their feelings.
For sure.
And being in their feelings is what's causing this rift, because they say, anger is like a pot boiling water, man. The only time you're going to see things clearly is when it's no longer boiling.
150%.
And that's a responsibility that we owe to ourselves and the ones we love and care about. Now, mind you, I'm not the pot calling the kettle black, because I'm still working on some things, but I can honestly admit that my emotions are never included when it comes to trying to make a business deal, or make prosperity moves, because if that was the case, I wouldn't be where I'm at right now.
Exactly. And to take it a step further, the reason we've reached this boiling point is because we've ignored this part of our country for so long.
Oh, agreed.
Now it's hyper focused. You know what I mean? It's gotten to the point where we've ignored it for so long that's why this is that bad. That's why they have the nerve to sit here and tell us, oh, there's $1 billion missing there in an accounting error. We don't know where it went. We know where it went. You fucking stole it. You stole it.
Not only did they steal it, may I?
Of course.
Another thing that, and again, everyone's entitled to their opinion. It's crazy because even as we talk now, we try to be careful, and what I'm trying to be careful, I could give a shit about your feelings. I try to be careful on being disrespectful and respectful.
Of course,
that's where I try to. But the truth of the matter is, even us as young entrepreneurs, when we're doing our taxes, we're seeing all the scapegoats, we're seeing all the hacks, and we're 100%. Like, damn, bro, like we're only taught to be submissive. We're not thought to think like as an individual or as a person of free will. We're
100%.
programmed, we're pre-programmed. And I think the greatest example is the Generation X and the boomers, because at the same time, we are in a generation where a kid can make $22 million off reviewing toys versus a person going to law school is going into $300,000 into debt. And we have a government who will deny you a loan for $20,000 to open up your own business, but will basically be more than happy to give you a $100,000 loan if it means going to school.
Yep.
And education's free the last time I checked. I think there's a major unshift balance where people are actually now starting to feel it. I even said this before, 30 years from now, we're going to have a real crisis on our hands. There's going to be a lack of specialists that we need, like cardiologists, neurologists. I was just recently watching LSU did a census review, and their med team, their med school, couldn't even pass basic tests. Now, here's where this gets crazy. It's not just a lack of education, but some of these people have gotten scholarships just simply because of the color of their skin. So that's another issue. I don't care what anybody says, and you can basically come at me for this. I don't care about fairness. I care about equality. And I think we have confusing the two because of emotions. A lot of people's emotions think because you have emotions or something, that doesn't mean life has to treat you fair. If it was fair, it wouldn't be called life.
Right.
Everyone deserves to have equality, the same opportunities.
And the same hardship.
Exactly. And with LSU, they have a great medical program. They were saying they should take it to a blindness test, meaning let people in based on their academic scores,
Right.
not based on their color.
Right.
Because that's what really matters at the end of the day. Do you really want somebody working on you because they're a person of color, or do you want them working on you because they achieved it?
I think, and I've said this before, on a college application, if they removed the race question, like when you applied and you did everything and they weren't allowed to ask you your race, you'd be surprised at how things would change. And that's just with college. I think in general, why do you even care what race I am? Like, why is that even a question? You know what I mean?
Well, I used to make jokes. I used to work retail, right? And I was like, I'm part of the 5%. People didn't understand what I meant by that. I'm like, no, I'm part of the 5%. And it's not something to be proud of because I firmly believe I'm supposed to be where I'm at based on my qualifications, not because
Correct.
the color of my skin
Correct.
or my religion or where I come from.
Agreed.
It's just because what you end up doing, you end up tainting the portal to that. You know, where people end up building a form of entitlement.
Correct.
Oh, I deserve this because no, you deserve what you put in work for. You don't
Correct.
deserve something because where you came from or the color of your skin or your religious preference. No, you deserve what you put the work in for. And I think that's where we're messed up because everyone now wants to have inclusion that don't deserve it. You know, it used to be a sense of motivation when you didn't get to number one. You remember that song with Nelly? 2 is not a winner and 3 nobody remembers.
Yes.
That's one of my favorite songs because
100%.
it motivates one to actually obtain the things you want in life. And I think we live in a generation where we're scared to compete. And that's a big shock culture to me. And it also falls into politics now.
It does.
It bled over. That's just my opinion. Again, you don't have to agree with me. It's just, that's how I foresee it.
It's so funny you bring in that song Number One by Nelly. Me personally, yeah, we were just talking about this, a friend of mine yesterday. Competition brings out the best in everybody.
Agreed.
If you don't compete with other people who are better than you or are trying to beat you, there's no motivation to get better. There's zero motivation. Think about it. If you're the only one doing something and no one is competing to take it from you or no one is competing to beat you or you're not competing to beat somebody else, what is your what's the benefit to trying harder? There isn't.
There isn't. I taught myself this at a very early age. I said, you're in a league of your own, you know, and people have to understand it's not a right for people to know who you are. It's a privilege. And that privilege is not supposed to come easy. It's a playing field for everyone. Anybody could participate, but only the ones who really want it are going to achieve it.
Right.
And, you know, we live in a generation now where it's like, no, it's not fair. It was never fair.
Correct.
Life has never been fair. If you want to get the greatest example, just watch the, Animal Planet, and that will teach you everything about life. I think we need to get back to the basics because the sense of entitlement is nauseating at this point.
Right.
And it makes it hard to have these conversations because even as we're speaking now, there's that one person or there's that group of people who are going to get triggered because it hurts their feelings.
Correct.
Your feelings are not a matter when it comes to truth. Truth is a fact. Facts cannot basically be weighed out because of how one feels.
100%. I couldn't agree more. And we live in such a fragile society. I think it's hilarious. We're all about feelings and how people feel. And, don't say that because you'll offend them. Or, no, give him a participation trophy because he showed up. That way he doesn't feel bad. I could care less about how anybody feels. What I care about is your quality of life. Like,
the content of your character is what I care about.
your mindset. Yes, these are things that matter to me. What are you thinking about on a daily basis? What are you aspiring to? Are you improving as a human being? Am I improving as a human being? Is my life getting better? Those are the questions and the things we should be paying attention to.
And those are always going to be debatable because they're by one's discretion.
Correct.
Not to go off topic, it's when I had a talk at the barbershop. Barbershop
talk
is one of those things I'm so happy about. And even then, you have to be careful with that now.
The original podcast.
Yes, the original podcast. Listen, your barber is your therapy. Shout out to Prestige. If you want to get a good cut, holla at my man, Jair. Pretty much when it comes to that, it's by one's discretion, right? We could go back as far as talk about police brutality. One of the things I have always said is the law, the problem with it is executed by one's discretion. Meaning if an officer just got laid, you could be doing 100 in a school zone, he's going to give you a warning. If he's find out that his marriage is falling apart and he's going through some tough shit, you could basically be driving without your seatbelt, you're going to jail. And it's executed that way by one's discretion. Now, what happens when a person's been taught their whole life that black is bad or Spanish is bad and white is right? They're going to execute off that.
Based
so
on
it's
that,
always going to be a biasness on that. Now, let's amplify that. We have that in politics. And I think that's what people don't want to acknowledge. It's not that they don't see it. They don't want to acknowledge it. The biasness that we have in our government and leading us into what I call devastation. We have so many young people with talent who are getting overlooked. I know that what's been going viral, I hate to talk about celebrities. What's this kid's name? Kanye West and Kim Kardashian's kid. just did
Northwest?
North, yeah. Just did The Lion King, right? Here is a kid, when you watch the show, it's almost deplorable because you could see that they don't belong there. And it's not that I'm taking shots at the kid. The kid is innocent. You understand what I'm saying? But at the same time, what about the kids who worked hard for that, who earned? You get what I'm saying? Now, this is where it comes to fairness and equality. It's not about fairness. It's just they didn't have the equal opportunity. You get what I'm saying? They didn't have an equal opportunity to get there. The fairness is the results. Okay, we don't care about that. But at the same time, when you could clearly identify that that person was better than the next person, and you're just asking yourself, how did that person get that spot? This is where we basically have to fall in, because that's what happens to us on an everyday basis, where there's individuals in positions of power who don't belong there. It's because of who they knew, not what they knew. And that's what's basically creating the rift, in my opinion.
Yeah, most people in positions of power don't belong there, but that's a whole nother conversation. All righty, guys, we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to hear from our first sponsor. We'll be right back. Ladies and gentlemen, the familiar voice of your host, Nelson Rodriguez Jr., taking a quick detour to talk to you about the best jewelry shop on the internet, Gus Villa Jewelry. Let's be honest here, guys. Jewelers in Miami are super shady sometimes. I've even been ripped off once or twice by one of these self-proclaimed alchemists that ended up being these weirdos who sell you a bunch of stuff that make your neck and your fingers turn black. Let me tell you, after I met my boy, Gus Villa, he elevated my bling game. The Gus Villa team, these guys are more than just jewelers. These guys are magicians, turning metal and stone into your next head turner. Trust me, these pieces shine so much you can see them from outer space. Head over to GusVillaJewelry.com, and because you're a Monty, that's right, part of the Montana Method crew, you can use the promo code Montana to snatch 5% off your order. You don't just get hooked up with some shine, you get to have some dough in your pocket. Double whammy. So guys, what are you waiting for? Elevate your jewelry game. Show the world what you got. You got some style, you got some bling, you're all blinged up. Come on back after you do that. We've got more Montana Method Madness waiting for you. Now back to the podcast. Yeah, man. The state of the world is just wild.
Very much so. Very much so. It's alarming.
Yeah. The state of the world is, I compare it to like some bipolar weirdo just having a spaz attack. You know what I think this is? This is like a reality show for some aliens somewhere, and they just...
Oh, yeah, they're getting entertainment. There's a reason we're not getting visited, bro. There's a reason we're not getting visited.
Oh, man, they're just up there having a laugh at...
Do you see this shit? They really still fighting over color? You know, like, it's maddening.
No, it's comical. You have to laugh at it. You really do, because if you don't, you're going to go insane, you know?
I know we were talking about the whole thing, you know, Trump being found guilty, right? Now, this is going to be a sensitive topic for some people, but...
People are going to get offended about my opinion about this.
Yeah, but it's not the first it's happened, and it's not going to be the last. We have JFK, Marilyn Monroe, like you were saying before. We have Bill Clinton, Monica Lewinsky.
In the White House.
In the White House. You know, again, these are the elite. So... we hold them to a higher standard because of the position of power they have and the responsibility that they have.
Right.
And once we start not holding people accountable, that's when chaos ensues. Now, mind you, in no way, shape, or form am I condoning this behavior. But at the same time, I'm not going to sit here, oh my God, I can't believe this happened. It's happened already.
Right.
So why is it that we're taking it to that magnitude? Is because people are in their feelings and they basically
100%.
ride on that.
100%. It's all emotional. It's all people being manipulated. And in spite of this hypersensitivity to politics and how it's gotten so polarized and how people get involved more, they're still not aware of the game being played at the end of the day. It's a total game. Mm-hmm. It's a total play on your emotions.
And we're the pawns.
150%. Whether you're a Republican, whether you're a Democrat, whether you're more of like a libertarian like I am, listen, at the end of the day, if you let this shit piss you off, if you let this get to you and you're arguing with people on Instagram about it, you are being manipulated, okay? Stop wasting your time. None of these people care about you. None of these politicians care about us. If you're for Biden, if you're for Trump, that's great. There's nothing wrong with having a political opinion, but at the end of the day, you can't let that run your life Because if you focus on that, and if you're not focusing on yourself, and if you're not focusing on your own goals and your own family and the things you got to do in your own life, guess what? Your life is going to become crap. Because the only person who's going to save you is you.
Yep.
No one's going to come save you. Politicians aren't going to pass some law that's going to make your life magically amazing. You have to take responsibility for your own life. And if you want to better your life, you have to do it. No one's going to do it for you.
Like you said, no one's coming to save you. I
100%.
think it comes down to a lot of people are like, oh, what's your political beliefs? The best way I could put it is all I want to do is go to my gay friend's wedding, take shots with an 18-year-old, and be able to basically have my pistol on me. Meaning I don't care what you do with your life as long as you're not hurting anybody. You know, I think that's where we got to get back to the core. Everyone has something called free will, but free will does have repercussions.
150%.
And you don't get dismissed because of what actions you're doing because other people are doing it too. You know, what they say, eye for an eye makes the whole world blind. We're set on a revenge, man. And I'm not going to discredit every politician out there. There are some people fighting for us, but we have to be more knowledgeable, more informative, and
100%.
less out of our emotions and understand what's really going on. Because it says we the people. You get what I'm saying? And that's the thing. When you talk about our government, man, when they wrote the Constitution, these men were well into their 20s, you know?
Right.
And now we got senior citizens who can't even drive a vehicle making decisions on our behalf. That's part of the problem. You know, I believe
100%.
in the words of Jackie Robinson, no man's free till we're all free. And that's basically past color. That's past even sex, because I also feel, you know, a lot of times we have a war going on between men and women. And the truth of the matter is, I don't think men should be making decisions on women's behalf when it comes to their body, but also do believe there needs to be accountability. You get what I'm saying? One of the biggest thing that took terms was a year ago, the Wade versus Roe.
Right.
You know, now mind you, yes, it's your body, but it takes two. And there has to be consideration into that. And I think once you dismiss that, you're never going to find peace. There's always going to be a rift between that.
I couldn't agree more. A lot of people talk about, you know, that whole issue, and they only want to talk about women. And then they make it seem like men are not even supposed to be in the equation, when in reality, a responsible man, if you were man enough to have sex with her, you should be man enough to be at least involved in a conversation of having a child with her. So that's just me.
I think that's important, and I think that's what gets lost, because it's like, oh, well, I'm the one going through it. Well, if we're going to talk about equality versus fairness, equality is if you get to make the choice, the man should make the choice whether he wants to participate. That's called being equal. That's not called fairness.
Right.
You get what I'm saying? And with that being said, it goes deeper into it, because I think people forget we have the executive branch, we have the legislative branch, we have the judicial branch. The other two branches we always seem to dismiss. And I think just to inform the viewers, the executive branch is appointed by the people for the people. Now, the ones making the law, that's what we need to pay attention to. The ones making our right calls, that's what we need to pay attention to. Look at the housing crisis. You know, I know we both live in Miami. It's like, dude, it's at one point, I think we all grew up like, yeah, I'm going to be married, I'm going to have a kid, I'm going to have a house. And the more you find out, the more you come to the realization like, yo, we've been cut underneath. We have the rug full from our feet. How do we get above that? And I think we got to unite. And uniting is part of the problem, because nobody wants to unite because we don't agree. Well, there used to be a term, agree to disagree, but we still stay civilized. Just because you don't agree with me doesn't make you my enemy. It just
100%.
means you have a different perspective of life.
Agreed.
And as a man or a woman, I have to respect that.
Right. Yeah. Their unity has nothing to do with believing in the same thing. Unity has to do with, in spite of how we feel about certain things, or even how we feel about each other in this moment, we should choose to unite and come together, because if we don't, there's going to be severe consequences. So I agree completely with what you just said. Most people confuse unity with like being in like agreeing on everything or being best friends. Not at all. A lot of alliances throughout history, if you read any history whatsoever, a lot of alliances in history were between parties who hated each other. But they came together for the greater good.
Civilized.
Or in some cases, maybe they weren't good guys, but they realized, I need your help and you need my help, because if we don't help each other, we're going to get wiped out and we're going to die. That's the reality of what the human race is. It's very dark. It's all survival of the fittest. It's greed, war, famine, all these things that have. I mean, we could go on and on. I've said many times. Anyone who knows me, I love Robert Greene's books. I love, the 32 Strategies of War and Mastery and the Art of Seduction. I love all those books. Why do I love all those books? Because a lot of people are like, man, those like the 48 Laws of Power is a very dark book. Yes.
But it's factual.
And it teaches you the reality of a side of humanity that no one likes to talk about. And because you don't like to talk about it, because you don't like to address it, because you don't like to pay attention to it, it festers and it grows and it takes advantage of people. And you just want to pretend it doesn't exist and it'll go away. Guess what? That's not how you deal with problems. You deal with problems head on, face first. And when you're head on and face first with a problem, it's uncomfortable and it hurts, but guess what? You'll solve it and you'll get through it and you'll become out of it a better person. I love these books because it addresses it tells you, listen, people are prone to this. When people have power, when people have money, when people have these things, some people choose to do these things this way.
I always say it like this, a lot of people say, oh, it's the elite. I don't think money makes people evil. I consider money an amplifier. It just amplifies who you really
150%.
are.
Yes.
And
I've said that myself in the past.
Yeah, of course it's needed because that's the culture and the world we live in. However, what's going on in the backyard, we seem to turn a blind eye till it reaches the front yard. Internally, there's so much division. And the first thing to solve that problem, you have to acknowledge the division.
Right. You
have to acknowledge that, yes, we do have a problem. Yes, there is a big disconnect.
100%.
But if you're not going to acknowledge it, potentially it's only going to get worse.
100%. Yeah. I'm a person that when I'm in those uncomfortable situations, I push myself to deal with the problem immediately. And I hate it and I'm super uncomfortable and it bothers me. But I know I nip it in the bud. It's over. I took care of it. Before the little pebble in your foot becomes, a giant rip in your foot, and now your foot is getting infected and all this crazy stuff. At the end of the day, you have to be very conscious of problems in your life. If you're the type of person that ignores them, I promise you, your life will be better if you just deal with it and move on.
It's like your health, man. First, you have a little chest pain. Oh, that's not that big of a deal. Now your arm's going numb. Now you're not breathing right. You potentially are sabotaging yourself when you choose not to deal with your problem.
100%.
But just like life, man, it has to have a certain amount of balance. Without balance, you don't have anything. You're just, what I would say, chaotic. And I think people need to get to the point, especially speaking on my behalf, I had to learn the hard way. The first step of self-love and self-worth is saying no.
Yeah.
And
it's important.
When you're a people pleaser, you end up absorbing everyone's problem and that drains your energy. And that's no one's fault but your own. I'm not saying to be cutthroat and cold shoulder to things, but understand your self-worth and your self-value. Because the one thing that I will say, one thing for sure, two things for certain is time is oblivious. People are oblivious to time. It's the one thing in life we can't get back. If you think about it, all your past experience of things that didn't work out, we're not so mad about it not working out. We're mad about the time spent on it because we understand that's the true value, the time that we're given.
Agreed.
And because we're oblivious to that time, that's what makes things precious because you don't know how long something's going to last. So you choose as an adult, not as a woman, not as a man, but as an adult to appreciate that.
Yeah, time is undefeated. That's for sure. Nothing is eternal.
Facts.
Nothing lasts forever. And I think it's funny how when people are going through a problem or going through an issue, how they have this attitude like, oh my God, this is the worst thing I've ever experienced in my life. Oh my God.
This is the worst thing that you've gone through yet.
Exactly. You're probably going to deal with something worse in the future. That's first. Second, when has a problem in your life lasted forever? Never. It never has. Eventually it subsided, whether you found a solution or it went away on its own. So this attitude, this pessimistic attitude most people have, oh my God, everything's over. When has everything ever been over?
This
really,
is where you gotta step back and look at your surroundings too, because that has a lot to do with it. They always say if you're the smartest person in the room, you better get up and walk out.
100%.
You want to try to put yourself in a position where you're constantly challenged, but in a mature, proper way. Not challenged in an immature way. It's not like, oh, who got the biggest nutsack? It's about who wants it more.
Right.
That competition's fierce, and it basically molds you into being a better person.
Better person.
Better person.
Agreed.
I always say that, and it's just something that we try to teach the youth too. You know, if you think about the way we grew up to how things are now, they said, oh, we were barbaric. I'm like, yeah, but we're not the ones doing crazy shit in the street. We're the ones smart enough to stay home. We're the ones smart enough to take accountability.
Right.
And that's what ends up happening when you're too lenient on certain situations. It's a breathing ground for problems.
Leniency in certain situations. I used to think life was very black and white, but in the last few years I've learned that life is very gray.
Very much so.
There are exceptions to the rule. You can't treat everybody the same. There's no cookie cutter system to any situation, because if you do it that way, things skew out of control, and that's where the injustice and the inequality happens. Because since you're treating everybody the same and you're just black and white, 1 + 2 = 3, no matter what, in every situation, but that's not the reality of the world. The world isn't fair, and different people have different circumstances. They deal with different issues. They might be dealing with the same problem, but they're different people that come from different upbringings and have different issues and different disabilities or disadvantages that they have. So to judge every single person that's going through something or makes a mistake or whatever that is, and to treat them exactly the same is probably not just ignorant, it's borderline evil.
You're cutting yourself short on that one.
Yeah.
I've been I was a tech, working on vehicles, motorcycles, you name it. I'm what you would call a true gearhead. And one of the things that I always said is, it doesn't matter how long I've been doing something. Somebody could come into the field brand new and teach me. There's always an opportunity to learn. And the best way to achieve that is to humble yourself. But as long as you're thinking black and white, you don't leave room to grow. You don't leave room
100%.
in order to be a better person. What ends up happening is you put yourself in this category where people who have some type of skill set or are willing to grow are going to alienate themselves from you, because you can't teach an old dog new tricks.
100%. I couldn't agree more, bro. That's this was a very hard lesson for me. Like, learning that things aren't so black and white all the time, and it's okay for the majority, or like at least for the most part, to think a certain way or whatever. But there are gonna come times where you have to bend, because if you don't bend, you're gonna break.
Facts.
So
you can't just get out the door and just basically ready to go. You have to warm up. In order to warm up, expand your mind, open up.
100%.
Definitely.
Alrighty, guys. We're going to hear a quick word from our second sponsor, and we'll be right back.
Alrighty, guys, taking a quick break from the podcast to bring you a word from our sponsor, Christian J. DePaz. Appreciate him for coming through. He offers a phenomenal service. Guys, I'm a big promoter of entrepreneurship, owning a company, starting a business, doing your own thing, and chasing your own dreams. But as the old saying goes, it takes money to make money. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about Christian J. DePaz and what he does. He gets funding for new and startup businesses. Christian, tell us a little bit about it.
Thank you so much, bro, for the opportunity to come inside your podcast and help more entrepreneurs start their own business or scale their current businesses. So what we do here at Secure Funding is that we'll help you acquire anywhere between $50,000 to $150,000 at 0% interest rate business credit, so that you can once again start or scale your current business. So if you come hear from our good friend Nelson, there's no other you're coming from, then we'll kind of met the podcast and we'll take extra good care of you. With that being said, brother, thank you so much for bringing us on.
Of course. What are you waiting for, guys? Click the link in the bio.
So, Logic, I appreciate you coming on.
Thank you for having me, man.
Of course, brother. So, I usually wrap up the show asking 3 questions. Okay. So, first question, what inspires you?
What inspires me is basically learning the unknown.
I like that. No one's ever said that when I've asked that question on the show. The unknown. What makes you so curious about the unknown?
The unknown is interesting to me because it's basically identifying how you perspect life and how you view yourself. And the only way to do that is to go into the abyss and challenge yourself and get uncomfortable.
What's something you've learned when you've dived into the unknown in the past?
Self-worth. You know, and
That's good.
that's one of the hardest things to accept, because as you acknowledge your self-worth, you have to look at yourself in the mirror and you have to take ownership for the things that you fucked up.
100%. Self-worth, responsibility, taking accountability. There's a lot there to unpack, because it's
It's a fight.
even myself at times. I mean, it used to be worse, but I've worked on it, and it's a progressive thing. You're like, oh no, but I'm right. Oh no, but they did this to me, and you never. It's like that, this, them. You never want to talk about you. What part did I play in that situation that made that situation so bad, or made that person react that way? It's always no, because they did this. It's never accountability. It's never responsibility.
Victimized mentality is what's basically shrinking humanity right now.
Bro, for me, such a big part of life, 99% of it is if the individual would focus on self-improvement and like taking accountability for their own life, and
Taking control.
it would solve 90% of the issues we face as a society. It really would. If the individual goes to work on themselves and becomes a better human being, the collective only benefits, because all of us are better human beings. We treat each other better. We're better physically, spiritually, emotionally. That's only going to create a successful society. I don't know how people don't see it that way. They focus so much on the collective. Oh, no, because the world should be this way. Right, but the world is made up of individuals. So if the
Facts.
individuals work to become better, the world becomes a better place.
I'll say it like this: society was built as a thought and a dream that somebody pushed towards. One of my favorite artists, may he rest in peace, Nipsey Hussle, one profound thing, two things he said was, everybody can go, but not everybody can grow. And the world would not, how do you say it? The world would not know Jesus Christ if there was never Judas. This night that's in my back will be the night that introduced us.
Wow.
So with that being said, for everything that's gone wrong in your life, for those who done you wrong, smile with it, man. Take it with a smile, because guess what? If you weren't someone great, it wouldn't happen. And you have to learn that not everything is personal. It's just life. How you receive it and how you handle it can make it personal. So have an open mind and be free. Don't be constricted by your emotions. Don't be constricted because what somebody said or how somebody feels.
Right.
You have one shot at this. There is no tomorrow. You know what I'm saying? I hate to sound like a pop, but there is no tomorrow. There's living in the moment. And if you're going to live in the moment, you have to own it. You have to, bro.
100%. Second question, Logic. What's next for you?
What's next for me? What's next for me right now is building my empire. I'm building a culture. I'm not going to be the man who changed the world, but I guarantee I'll be the man who sparks the brain that does.
I love that. That's awesome. Yeah, that's what I hope to do. I don't really. It's not about.
Manifest it.
Yeah, it's not so much about changing the world. It's just more about having those conversations that get people to think and inspire people. I the other day I got a message from an old friend of mine who she sent me a bunch of pictures of these water bottles, and I didn't know what they were, but she basically explained to me, listen, this is like water infusions that I do, and I've been meaning to open this business for a while, and I kept putting it aside, and because I watched your content, I was inspired, and I started, and then I just wanted to take a picture of my first order and send it to you so you could see it. So it's pretty inspiring when that's the kind of impact you can have on another human being, and that's at the end of the day, if I help one person think like, wow, I can do this, or start doing something different with their life, I mean,
If I may, right?
Yeah.
And I'll say this too. Which camera am I looking at? This one, right?
Yeah.
Understand what you're going through in life. You're somebody's worst, man. A lot of times in society, we say, oh, somebody has it worse than you. No, you're somebody's worst. Meaning what you're going through right now is somebody's life and death situation, and you handled it with ease. We influence people based on our behavior and the choices we make in our lives. Whether you like it or not, there's somebody looking up to you. And also, there's somebody looking down on you. And you have the power to prove them right. You have the power to prove them wrong. But you're somebody's worse. Meaning, what you're going through and the way that you handle it is going to be the blueprint for somebody to navigate through. So embrace the hardship. Embrace the struggle. But make it a purpose and make it a mission to rise above that. That's one thing I'll say.
I love that, bro. That's fantastic. I couldn't have said it any better. And then the last question, my brother, how do you want the world to remember you when you're no longer here?
Well, that's a crazy question because I've been through some trauma. I got in a motorcycle accident a couple years ago, and then, I died on the scene.
Well,
And that is one of the things that put a fire underneath my ass. I almost died alone. And when I say I almost died alone, I almost became a memory. No kids, no wife. And it was a shock because then it really makes you realize how fragile and how precious life is. And even people, but you're an adrenaline junkie. I'm not willing to ask myself what if. So the way I want to be remembered, I would like to be remembered and work to be remembered in this way as shoot for the moon. If you miss, you're still amongst those stars. There's no such things as mistakes in life, just lessons learned.
I love that. I have the same mentality. I'd rather fail and know that it didn't work out than just ask myself, what if I would have done it? And you know what I mean? It makes no sense to me not to just take the chance, especially if you don't have much to risk, which most people don't. Most people think they have a lot to lose. Most of you don't. Most of us don't. That we really don't. So just ask yourself the question, what will happen if I fail? What's the worst case scenario here? Most of the time, it's nothing. You'll probably be exactly where you are right now. So
You'll never know unless you shoot.
yeah, 100%. So Logic, I appreciate you being on the show, brother. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you. Make sure you hit me up at
Yeah, how can people connect with you? Tell them.
You can find me on YouTube, 1424 Podcast, also known as One Thing for Sure, Two Things for Certain. Like to give a proper shout out to my team. I love you guys. You're helping me build my dream. Also, shout out to Boa Studios. If you want to get your work done right and you want to basically expand your future, your career, your business, definitely that's the one place to check out. I want to say thank you for having me here, man. It's been a great opportunity. I felt the love, the vibe. I'm happy. And thank you, man, because you're helping me achieve my dream as well.
Appreciate you, bro. Got to do this again sometime.
Most definitely.
All righty, guys. That's another episode of Montana Method Podcast. A special guest, Logic, from One Thing's for Sure, Two Things for Certain.
Yes, sir.
As always, push it to the limit. The world is yours. And if you are not chasing a dream, life is meaningless, guys. Catch you on the next one. Say goodnight to the bad guy.
I've been out here hustling all my life. Every day we get into it. Really out here in these streets. That's day and night. Like there's nothing to it. When I was going through it, dog, I never got your call. I never asked for nothing, no. But now I want it all. I promise I'ma do it. Came from rags to riches. Rags to riches. Came from rags to riches. Rags to riches. Came from rags.